Spawn might not have come from Marvel or DC, but that doesn't mean he's not a comic book heavyweight. His Image Comics popularity spawned, sorry about that, a line of action figures, video games, an animated HBO series, and a live-action film. Thankfully, a new movie is in the works starring Jamie Foxx. In order to prepare you for that flick, let's dive into the comic book history of Spawn. As always, make sure you smash that subscribe button for more comic book deep dives, movie reviews, and TV show breakdowns. Right now, we're breaking down Season 2 of Westworld and Legion, and coming soon, we'll be covering the new seasons of Preacher and Luke Cage. Spawn first appeared in 1992's Image Comics series Spawn #1. He was created by legendary artist and writer Todd McFarlane, who previously worked for both DC and Marvel on a handful of runs that included Batman, Incredible Hulk, and most significantly, Amazing Spider-Man. Years later, McFarlane teamed up with a handful of other popular artists to form Image Comics. Their second release, Spawn #1. The issue sold 1.7 million copies, a record for an independent comic book. For comparison, The Walking Dead #163 was the highest-selling indie book in decades, and that only sold 730,000 copies. Now when it comes to the comic books, there are a couple different versions of Spawn. Let's first start in the 1990s. Born in Detroit, Michigan, Albert Al Francis Simmons would become a highly decorated Marine, CIA operative, and an extremely lethal assassin. During a mission in Botswana, Simmons was murdered by his friend at the orders of CIA Director Jason Wynn. Simmons was then sent to hell because of his life as an assassin. That's right, he knowingly killed a bunch of innocent people throughout his career. Understandably, Simmons wanted to see his wife Wanda again, so he made a deal with the devil, selling his soul to a demonic being known as Malboja. But there was a catch. He returned 5 years later as a Hellspawn, with no memory of what had happened and a badly burnt and disfigured body.
Like a young Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, just like that guy. Eventually, Simmons remembered his past thanks to some very painful flashbacks and went to check in on his wife. That's when he found out that his wife had moved on and married his best friend Terry. If that wasn't enough, the pair also had a daughter named Cyan. Can it get any worse for this guy? Yeah, actually it can. Simmons also met a demonic god, his sort of personal mentor, named the Violator.
What are you afraid of? Clowns.
Me too. Me too. The evil clown revealed to Spawn that his purpose in the afterlife, so to speak, was to be a Hellspawn and to do Malboja's bidding. It would soon become clear to Spawn that he had to fight both heaven and hell in order to survive. Time now to fast forward a whole bunch because I can't fit 25 years of comic books into one video. Al Simmons would eventually kill himself by blowing off his own head, which is the only way to truly kill a Spawn. At this very same moment, a man by the name of Jim Downing woke up from his coma in a hospital. He recovered quickly and mysteriously had memories of Spawn. Later on, Jim traveled throughout the city and stumbled upon the previous Hellspawn's throne, finally taking over the mantle as new Spawn. But this gets even more confusing because comic books. Al Simmons made his comeback in Image United, an Image Comics crossover featuring a whole bunch of heroes and villains. This time around, Simmons was the main villain, Omega Spawn, with, you guessed it, unlimited power. He wanted to end the world, so he released all of the supervillains from Hell, and Jim tried to fight him, but he was way too powerful. More recently, the original Spawn, Al Simmons, returned in 2015 for Spawn #250. It pretty much wrapped up the Jim Downing version as he struggled in a fight with his own suit, while Simmons was back in full control of his suit and powers. Speaking of powers, Spawn's powers originate from his necroplasm. That's the green goo you see all over these comic book panels. Here's the catch. Once all the necroplasm is used up, Hellspawn must return to Hell. And now for the most controversial part of this video, Spawn has the best cape ever. Yep, it's way better than Batman's, and Doctor Strange's, and yes, even Lando. The cape is part of the sentient, parasitic suit that all Hellspawn are given when they're created, which makes them look kinda like Venom from Hell.
Never wound what you can't kill.
Al Simmons' suit is a specific one, the K7 Letha. This specific suit is stronger and faster than any other Hellspawn suits. The parasite connects directly to the host's central nervous system and reacts to the person's thoughts, feelings, and needs. It also gives Spawn superhuman strength and durability. He can literally lift an entire building and toss it around easily. If that wasn't enough, Spawn can use the suit to create chains and spikes, and even the cape itself can cut through enemies. He can mutate, resurrect the dead, camouflage himself, regenerate, and even talk to animals.
Who's this?
I'll give you a hint. I'm cute, I'm furry, and I make 500 babies a year.
On top of all of this, don't forget that before he became Spawn, Al Simmons was at the top of his military training. He's a master at hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. Because Spawn has a finite amount of power reserve, he'll often execute enemies using his mastery of firearms. Spawn's only real limitation is his own imagination. Now, as for the upcoming Spawn reboot, it's going to be a whole lot different from comic book movies we've seen in the past.
Hey, is any of this sinking in? You're dead. Dead.
Writer and creator Todd McFarlane will be making his directorial debut with Jamie Foxx starring as Al Newman. Get it? New man? He may not be Al Simmons, but he'll basically have the same backstory as he did from the books. Also, it sounds like it won't be an origin story in that we won't see or hear much of the title character. McFarlane is much more interested in creating a hard R horror film that pulls directly from the comics. Guys, I have a confession to make. I actually enjoyed the first Spawn film, but I was much younger back then. I'm actually a fan of Jamie Foxx, and we can finally forget about Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comments below, and we will see you next time.